Hi, I'm Stephanie Kimball, and I am Managing Director of Climate Strategy at Conservation International. The way that I got my start in conservation is quite a long journey. It started back when I was in undergraduate college at the University of Iowa. And I was actually majoring in pre-dentistry to go to dental school, which is an 8-year journey. I was in my first year, and I decided over the summer break that I wanted to go abroad to do some environmental work because I'd always been passionate about the environment. So I went to the southeast corner of Costa Rica on a black sand beach in a really tiny village where we would stay with the families and they would feed us, and we could stay in their homes while we also did sea turtle conservation in the evening times. And this was a really interesting program because what they've discovered with this program is that basically when you have a challenge of conservation, oftentimes it's an economic challenge. So we needed to find a way that it was more economically viable for the community to help save the sea turtles than to eat the eggs or sell the eggs. And so what we did was we worked with conservation scientists there, and we would have to go along the beach at night because the sea turtles come offshore in the evening and overnight in order to lay their eggs. Now these weren't just an ordinary sea turtle. While all sea turtles are magical, my favorite are the leatherback sea turtle. They're 8 feet long. They look like dinosaurs because they've been around since the dinosaurs. And they are just these magical, slow-moving onshore creatures. And so we would have these flashlights that we would walk along the beach and look for them coming slowly up the shore. Once we saw them start ready to lay their eggs, they would dig a deep hole, and we would sneak behind them with a bucket and catch the eggs as they were being laid. Then we would bring them up higher and we would put them in a hatchery so that we could then protect the hatchery from wild dogs, crabs, and also, other humans who sometimes were harvesting these eggs. So the first lesson I learned in this project was actually just how hard conservation can be. So we're walking around at night, patrolling the beaches, and we were there during the rainy season. So there was a huge torrential downpour this one night that it was hard to see straight because everything was wet and our flashlights weren't working very well in the rain. And what we had to do to get from one part of the patrol area to another was actually cross a lagoon entry. So they had the ocean, a small strip of sand, and then a lagoon. And at high tide, that area flooded more. And so we were up to our waist in water, and we had to hold on to each other in a row to cross the stream so that we wouldn't get brushed out to sea in a torrential downpour. And so I got a little nervous when our guide stopped us before crossing and looked for sea crocodiles to make sure there weren't any in the way. I was not familiar with sea crocodiles until that moment. They're 20 feet long, and I was terrified. So I was like, well, there's no other way to go. We gotta just go through it. So I'm walking with my friends, holding onto our shoulders, and the first step into the lagoon, a giant sharp thing hits my leg, and I am thoroughly convinced I am getting eaten by a crocodile in this moment. I start hysterically laughing / crying and peed my pants. Then I realized it was a log, in fact, and not a crocodile. Thank goodness, I'm still here. And what I realized was the logs were coming from deforestation of the rainforest that was happening a few kilometers away. And so luckily made it across the lagoon, and we actually found a sea turtle right after that was laying eggs. And it was just this beautiful moment in the middle of the thunderstorm catching the eggs, and never felt more alive. Although terrifying, it clearly stuck with me all these years. However, I was on the track for dentistry still and decided to go back to the University of Iowa, finished my dental degree. Then I practiced dentistry for 5 years in Wisconsin. However, I just felt like there were these huge issues happening. In this intervening years, the climate crisis really had come into full view. I felt like I couldn't just sit on the sidelines anymore. And so I started volunteering on climate-related issues at a nonprofit in Wisconsin. Ended up working just as many hours as a dentist every week as I was volunteering, realized this was untenable, and decided to go back to grad school and just commit to my passion. Now in my role at Conservation International 10 years later, as lead of the climate strategy, my role is really to take solutions from around the world that Conservation International is implementing in communities just like the one I was in Costa Rica, and take them to scale. And what we're doing with that work is making sure that these solutions that are often very straightforward are getting the investment that they need in order to fully reach the potential they have to solve the climate crisis.